If you were looking for bold predictions ahead of the NFL season, this is the episode for you. We get into a ton of different topics, and I'm sure nobody is going to agree with us, or all of you might agree with us. Probably the early rather than the latter, but regardless, fun episode. We get into all the bold predictions.
Some Hall of Fame predictions too, and one Hall of Fame prediction nobody really needs to make because we already know they are locked in as the best in the business. PJ's Coffee. They are our presenting sponsor. They got locations all over the city, so make sure you go and check them out and get your day started with them every single day. That's what Hall of Famers do. And we are coming to you from the Better Call Botto podcast studio. So if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, offshore injuries, 18-wheeler collisions, Maritime and Jones Act hurricane and storm claims, you better call Botto at 504-323-7777 or 985-303-7777 for your free consultation and case review. And make sure you check out Ideal Market. They are the home of the freshest produce in the city. Peter J. Larkin, the award for National Grocers Association, was presented to them for outstanding community support. And they always bring the best quality food products at the best prices. So if you want a hot deli that surpasses many restaurants in the flavor of authentic Hispanic dishes, Ideal Market is the place for you. You can also cash checks and wire money there at a customer service center that is like no other. And if you are of legal drinking age, get yourself a bottle of Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. That is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon American light whiskey and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries blended in New Orleans. It is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. Last but not least, Firehouse Subs, Veteran Boulevard location. Make sure you get there. They do great stuff for the community. All right, let's get into the show.
There's some change in the NFC South this year, specifically with quarterbacks. The NFC landscape has kind of changed. A lot of things have stayed the same, though, and I think that's maybe why we might see some realignment. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but let's start with the NFC South, and let's start with Ideal segment presented by Ideal Market. How does the rest of the NFC South play out this year?
The rest of the NFC South is doing what the Saints refused to do, and that's rebuild. Different levels of rebuilding, but ideally, none of the teams are back yet. None of the teams get there yet. There's three different levels. There's Carolina that went for the full rebuild. The one that I think some Saints fans kind of wanted to see, the go for the number one pick, Bryce Young, trade away Christian McCaffrey last year, trade away DJ Moore this year. But they're still kind of talented. That's going to be really interesting. I think they can be competitive even in that mode. They added Adam Thielen and Miles Sanders. They still have some talent. Brian Burns, J.C. Horn. So they're interesting. They can't get there yet. Atlanta, I think, they didn't really find their quarterback. No. They have Desmond Ridder, but then they just went on this spending spree this year. Ryan Nielsen, the new defensive coordinator, gets Jesse Bates, David Onyemata, Caden Ellis, Calais Campbell, Jeff Okudah. Maybe they think they've arrived. I don't think so yet, and I have no idea what Tampa Bay is doing. They're sort of in total rebuild mode, not even trying to win, it feels like. But at the same time, they kept Mike Evans, they kept Chris Godwin, they kept Levante David, they brought in Baker Mayfield to, I guess, compete for a few weeks with Kyle Trask. I don't know what they're doing, but ideally for the Saints, none of these teams gets there.
Yeah,
and they just walk through the NFC South.
Yeah, it is weird. I'm leaning toward Carolina having a better year than the rest of the NFC South. That excludes the Saints. I think Carolina will be the better team from Tampa Bay and Atlanta. So just to break this down, quarterbacks. In Atlanta, it's Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke, which I think is kind of interesting because
he's in Atlanta.
I know when that happens.
It was
who knows?
A musical chairs with those backup quarterbacks.
He was about one of my four commanders.
Listen, this guy beat up on the Eagles and then just said bye. He just left.
Wow.
I won't forget that game. That's okay. Carolina, Bryce Young, Matt Corral, Andy Dalton. I forgot Andy Dalton landed with Carolina.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. I think we all knew that one. It's a weird year in the NFC South.
It's a bad year for quarterbacks. I mean, but look, like you said, I think Carolina's the one that I would give the most credence to as a team that could get better and maybe make a run for it. They have a lot of pieces there. I liked a lot of the stuff they did last year. I like their momentum. maybe if he hits, they're a decent team. If the Saints aren't quite what we think they're going to be, it could definitely be competitive. I'm not quite taking Atlanta seriously. I can't even, Tampa's not even on the map right now.
Right.
So I think it's Carolina or nobody really in the whole division. There's a possibility if things go right for Atlanta, maybe Atlanta's decent, but I just don't see it.
I actually saw like at least earlier this summer, a lot of books had Atlanta with one more win than Carolina in the betting win total. So I guess maybe still get to a betting window if that's still the case. But the Saints, the Saints are projected at least one win more than every other team in the division. They got to take advantage.
And just looking at the rest of the NFC, who are the biggest threats for the Saints? I've got their schedule pulled up here. We have Green Bay on the roster, or Green Bay on the schedule, which, as we know, just it's not the same Packers team with Aaron Rodgers moving on to the Jets. New York Giants at home. They go to the Rams. Are those threats technically?
I think most of their threats, like I don't know if it's necessarily teams on their schedule. I would say it's probably the 49ers are always a threat. If they get their quarterback situation figured out, they might not. They might take a step back, but we'll see. Eagles, definitely. I think they're the biggest threat until somebody else. I'd put the Cows on the list. They're a threat probably at some degree. I think those are probably the big three that I would circle. I don't really see any internally in their division as major threats. Green Bay's obviously not someone that you can look at the same way. I didn't take the Vikings totally seriously last year. Their 9-win win streak or whatever, I think was a little bit fluky and the product of luck and circumstance. So those would definitely be the three for me.
Yeah. So, but let's say Philadelphia and San Francisco are winning their divisions. Either the Vikings or Lions are probably winning their division. So, yeah, the team's fighting for wild card spot. I think the Cowboys. Got to take the Giants somewhat seriously. They won a playoff game last year, and they're trying. They didn't lose a lot, even though I think they might have overachieved last year. We've talked a few times on the show about whether we believe the Detroit thing or not.
Yeah, buy or sell.
Yeah, sell on them being like the next big thing. They could make the playoffs in this NFC. They could theoretically make the playoffs, but I like the Saints better than I like the Lions right now. And then they,
hold up, buy or sell, Lions.
I'm with him on that. I would pick the Saints over the Lions as far as trending.
I'm selling all the if I'm looking at the stock market and the Lions are up here and I'm selling it because I don't think it's going to keep going up.
No, I agree.
Oh, I agree on that too. NFC West. Now here's where I might buy.
Jared Goff, they're the hype of the league. Maybe, but it's just
But that just goes back to our quarterback conversation. It's weak. The NFC, you've got your guys at the top. Well, Jalen Hurts at the top, and then it kind of just falls off after that. I think we all disagreed on our bottom four and our top five, which is just the NFC.
When I look, no offense to Jalen Hurts, but I gotta see it too. Once the contract kicks in and you can't put this superstar structure around him, that's part of it too. So I believe I'm a buyer. I'm buying Jalen Hurts, but I'd hedge a little bit too. It's one really good year.
And San Francisco, I think that's a team that we have extreme faith in, but that means we have to buy Brock Purdy. They've basically named Brock Purdy their starter, or Trey Lance. But two huge question marks at the most important position in the sport. The NFC West is curious to me because Seattle's in there. I think we all think they overachieved last year, and the Rams just plummeted last year. Incredible amount of injuries, but if Matthew Stafford's a little healthy, if Cooper Kupp's back healthy, if Aaron Donald's, that's still a team that just won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. It could be really interesting. What is that, week 16? If the Saints don't have the NFC South wrapped up, that could maybe they'll keep them on Thursday Night Football in the new flex schedule because maybe they'll be battling for a wild card spot at that point.
And it's easy too, I think, to identify a team based on their offense. We're not giving some of these defenses enough credit in the NFC. The 49ers, the Saints, Atlanta should have a better defense based on what they've done. The Eagles had a great defense. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, but I think a lot of the time, and this is media everywhere, national media on the local level, we almost generalize a team's bio based on what their offense is. So maybe we're not giving some of these NFC teams enough credit based on what they're capable of doing.
Well, and I think that's why the Saints have fallen. So their star has fallen. I don't think anyone has recognized that they've been a top 5 defense for the last 5 years in the NFL when, I think we all know that a lot of talking heads just dismiss them. Oh, what are they doing? And they mention the coach and the quarterback and they don't realize, well, they've, they've become one of those teams. The Saints have really become not the 49ers, but the next tier of teams that's the Titans or whatever, like a defense first team.
Like if the 49ers score 20 points a game, like they might go undefeated. Like their defense is that good.
Yeah.
What was it last year? 16.4, 16.9, something like that. They were crazy good last year. So yeah, Purdy just has to be like a solid usher of games that isn't messing stuff up for him. And they could be really, really good.
Well, that's why they said Brock Purdy was able to come in and be ready to go because he was going against the ones all in training camp and all season. So you're going up against arguably one of the best defenses in the NFL.
The best defense
he was ready.
in the NFL.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it right now. This will be one of those things that goes on our fictional board that we have yet to create. That one day we'll rewind it if we want to brag and forget this ever happened if we're all way off. All right, seven playoff teams in the NFC. We all say Philly. We all say Philly is winning the East. No objection. San Francisco's winning the West.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Saints are winning the South.
Yep.
Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay, Chicago.
Minnesota.
What about you? Where are you in the NFC North?
Let me get my standings up.
You just sold Detroit, but can they win this? The NFC North is kind of ripe for the taking right now.
I think it's definitely Minnesota. It's Minnesota until somebody proves it. I can't make that bet on Detroit.
I know, and you can't make the bet on the Green Bay Packers.
No.
It's definitely
Green Bay could be one of those weird. Green Bay could be one of those weird like Aaron Rodgers leaves.
I'm not sold on anybody, but it should be Minnesota.
All right.
Now, does Minnesota live up to that?
Fair.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. So now I need 3 wild cards. Everybody has the Cowboys as a wild card.
Yeah, I got the Cows. Give me the Cows.
Let's hear it.
The Cows. I love the way you say that.
Do they? Is
That's all
anyone
they
bet?
get.
Does anyone bet against the Cowboys as a wild card team?
Just the Cows.
Okay, so here's other contenders.
You know
Giants.
what? I could see the Bucks being a wild card team.
The Bucks.
I know, isn't that weird?
They're my 4th place
I
pick
know.
in the NFC South. I could see Carolina sneaking in there. I'm taking the Cowboys, the Rams, and the Giants as my 3 wild cards.
I like the Rams. Unfortunately, I think the Cowgirls get it over the Giants.
We're being so mean to the Seahawks. Didn't believe it.
Geno Smith, come on, man.
Didn't believe the Lions.
Let's
Didn't
see
believe
it.
the Seahawks.
I'm going Cows, Panthers, Seahawks.
All right. There you go. We're not being mean to the Seahawks. I'm being mean to the Seahawks.
Yeah.
And my surprise pick in the AFC, I got Houston making the playoffs.
That is a bold.
Yeah, I'll write it on the note.
There we go.
That's bold.
Saved.
That's bold. I think the odds makers probably have Houston about 18th in the AFC right now, even though there's only 16 teams. I like it. I like going bold. Did we get your 3 wild card teams in the NFC?
I don't know if I want to lock anything in because I don't have a strong list.
We're not locking
I don't
anything
have a strong
in.
list
Hold on,
here.
I have a pencil around here somewhere. I have a pencil.
Somehow
already.
the Cowboys always find a way in, so I have to add them. I do think the Seahawks are going to be better this year.
Cows, Seahawks, Panthers.
Those were Nick's
And
3.
I'll go, you know what? I'll just throw, just for kicks, instead of Panthers, I'll go Bucks.
All right. No love for the Atlanta Falcons.
Who are your 3? Cows,
Seahawks, Bucks.
Seahawks, Bucks. I like it. Mike, who you got?
Cowboys, Rams, and Giants.
Why do you think that is?
Nobody
why do you
picked
think
the
that is
Lions.
People are
Nobody
sleeping
picked the Lions.
on Seattle.
You said Cows, Giants.
Rams.
Give me a wild AFC pick.
Oh, geez.
Didn't you just say Houston?
Houston.
He just wants to have that on.
It's a wild pick. Could be majorly wrong. Give me one.
I'm not picking the Raiders, that's for sure. I'm not picking. Who's a wild pick?
The
Everybody's
Broncos
supposed to be
would
good.
be.
I'm not picking the Browns. I don't see it.
No, the Broncos.
I'm not picking the Broncos.
You taking the Broncos? Poor
How
Sean.
about Chargers?
All right.
Okay.
Does Patriots count as a wild pick since nobody thinks they're going to make the playoffs?
Yeah.
Pats?
I'll take them as the team that just won't go away.
I think the Chargers are expected to be good.
Yeah,
we got to go more dark horse.
Okay.
More dark horse.
Okay, no, but I do want to ask, why is the national narrative on the Seattle Seahawks? Like, why have they fallen into the Saints category of like nobody talks about them?
I mean, they won 9 games. I'm not sure that anybody's a full believer in Geno. I'm not sure that you look at Geno as a difference maker. I think they were just one of those teams that caught lightning in the bottle. You play a better schedule a year from now, maybe you fall back a little bit. So I don't think that they should be in that upper tier at all.
And they felt like a team that wasn't trying. They felt like they last year were what we just said about the Panthers, Falcons, and Buccaneers. They traded away Russell Wilson. They didn't go out and spend big in free agency and stuff like that. And then Geno Smith was the comeback player of the year. And And lo and behold, addition by subtraction, which is, if anybody has that season this year, it's the Packers. That they're the model for what the Packers could surprisingly do for this year. Here's my bold prediction in the AFC. I just thought of one while we were talking. It's not a surprise to make it, but the team, everyone's talking about the Bengals. Everybody's talking about everybody else. Ravens, number 1 seed in the NFC.
Oh, Ravens, number
AFC,
1 seed. All right.
Not just in, number 1 seed.
Number
Ravens.
1.
I will take the field.
I'll take
go
my
Buffalo.
Ravens. I'll take my
Buffalo?
Ravens pick over your Texans make the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Chiefs are so good. I just like
Yeah,
it's the easy pick, but I don't want to make the easy
I'm
pick.
taking Mahomes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, no kidding. I thought we were supposed to make a bold prediction. You just
It's
threw out
bold
Texans
prediction.
make the
I mean, you
playoffs.
said number 1 pick. Number 1 pick.
We're allowed to pick the
Number 1,
Chiefs.
but like, you made the prediction. I don't believe they're going to win it. Like, I believe Houston will make the playoffs.
Okay.
Like gun to our head, we would all say Chiefs. It would be the number
Mike's
1
saying
team.
the Ravens. He came out
No,
and
no,
said
no,
it.
that's the bold
I
prediction.
was trying to think of a bold prediction.
I know.
All right. I got the Chiefs.
Okay, here's my bold
The
prediction.
comment section
Texans
is about to
don't
go
make the
crazy on this
playoffs.
episode. This is about
My
to be
bold
nuts.
prediction: Texans don't make the playoffs.
Ooh.
All
All right,
right.
give me,
Well,
give me your wild AFC team. Who's the one?
I thought I gave it. Didn't I say Chargers?
You gotta go. You gotta go deeper. You
No.
gotta go
How
deeper.
about Chargers
I'm
win the
good.
division? I would allow that.
Over the Chiefs.
Yeah, no, I'm not going that far. I don't know. Maybe Sean takes the Broncos to the playoffs.
All right, we're going Broncos. All right.
That's such a scary thing to say, but
That
We'll see.
division is tough.
yeah, it is. It is really tough. Okay, moving on to another polarizing topic. And I genuinely think everybody in the NFL is thinking about this. Is it time to realign the divisions based on how strong the AFC is compared to the NFC? And realistically, how quickly would that happen?
Never, first of all.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about, but I mean, these things go in waves. I mean, we've seen it in the NBA where the West was so strong for a while. We've seen it in the NFL where the NFC for decades dominated. We both grew up Philadelphia Eagles fans.
Yeah.
They had to
We
watch
just put it out there
the
for the first time.
Cowboys, Washington, and the Giants win Super Bowls
Yeah.
4 years in a row during Randall Cunningham's heyday. I'll never get over it. So those things go in ways, but the NFL is built for parity. So the NFL doesn't have to realign because like the Yankees and the Red Sox are in the same division and they're outspending everyone. The NFL is built for parity, so they just know that time will fix this. So they're not going to realign for that purpose.
I feel like the NBA needs to realign more than the NFL. I mean, maybe one of the things is like maybe Carolina could be more of like a northern division, and then you got like the Cowboys and the I don't know. Like there's a couple things that you can make geographically different. The Miami being in the AFC East is kind of
Now that
outrageous.
stuff's crazy.
Yeah, like there's a couple things. So maybe you put Carolina in the AFC East and move Miami to the NFC South, like just for geographical purposes, to where they're like actually in the South and it isn't like this like
Right.
long trip. But overall, like I feel like most of the stuff is set up pretty well. I mean, there's a couple things that you could sell me on, just like in terms of like common sense drawing a border.
I
around
don't
an
think
area.
they'll do it for competitive reasons. They could do it for geographic reasons. I've done this. Have you ever sat on the airplane and just like, this is probably back before we had the technology to download everything on our phones. I would pull out the map and I would like, all right, if the NFL was aligned geographically, the Saints, it would be Cowboys, Texans, Titans, and Saints. Do we like that better
I
than their
do
current
like-
rivalries? Cowboys, Texans, Titans, and Saints.
Take out like so there's a lot of
You
history.
lose the Falcons.
There's
You
a
gotta
lot-
have the Falcons.
Yeah.
in the
There's
same
So
history
you
and
together.
keep the Falcons,
storylines.
you give away the Cowboys.
Yeah, there's a lot of history and storylines with the NFC South, but man,
All
that
right,
sounds
I'll let you keep the
interesting.
Falcons. Saints, Falcons, Texans, Titans.
Give me the Cowboys in there.
I'm not allowed.
I would say
the Cowboys kept.
Then I
their,
say keep it the
Yeah.
same. Keep it the same.
okay.
Because like if you had the Falcons, you had the Cowboys, and you had the Saints in the same division, I feel like the rivalries would just be
Oh, yeah.
crazy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it would be awesome.
No, oh yeah.
Yeah, who would be Marshawn Lattimore's new Mike Evans?
He'd find one. For
Who's
sure.
on the Cowboys?
CeeDee Lamb.
Is he a trash talker? Like that's the trash
CeeDee
talk
Lamb.
it's the trash talk that
Yeah,
takes it over
man.
the top. All right.
You remember what the Cowboys defense did against Mike Thomas a few years ago? They got under his skin.
It might be Mike Evans might be the new Mike Evans in that
Yeah, it's
game.
true. It's true. Wait, no. Who did the Cowboys just sign? Brandon Cooks. There you go.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks will talk.
I don't feel like it'd be as heated though. I don't feel like
Nothing
it'd be
will
as
be.
heated.
Nothing would
Yeah.
be. Nothing would be. All
Well,
right.
let's
All right.
keep the boldness of this
All right.
this episode. This is all this is not anything we've been hearing or anything like that. Does Dennis Allen have what it takes to be a head coach in the NFL? We've asked this question before, but now what does he have to prove this year to be able to hold on to that coaching title?
I'm going to go yes. I think he does. And B, he's got to win games. Like it's really that simple. I think he just has to have better control over everything he's doing. I think that things have felt even different in just like in terms of I'm going to be on top of every single detail. Like some of that stuff trickles down to us. Like there were hallways we were walking through last year that we didn't know existed before. Like we were walking miles like around.
Yeah, we've
places.
seen the meeting rooms now.
Yeah,
we've peeked our head in a couple times walking through.
And this year it's not like that. Like
No.
we're walking the long way to things. Like so we're out of the way. We aren't disturbing anything. It's just everything feels a little bit tighter and more like, all right, I'm running it the way I'm running it. Some of the Parcells signs are down in the locker room. They're replaced by DA signs. So there's stuff that's changing that I think DA's put more of a stamp on things. And I just think overall it needs to be tighter. Like that was my talking point for like the first 8 weeks last year was just that I didn't think there was enough accountability. I thought things were too soft. I didn't think people were getting punished. The kicker now has kicker competition. Like there's just stuff that he's doing this year that I think is just a little bit more like, all right, I'm not going to trust anything. I'm going to do it my way. And I'm going to believe I'm buying in. I'm buying in.
Yeah. I think two things.
Tepidly buying it.
I think he does have to make the playoffs. We just went over it's a perfect episode to pair these two things in because we just went over the NFC landscape. It's not going to be like the Chargers win 11 games and miss the playoffs because the AFC is so stacked. If they don't take advantage, the NFC South is only going to get stronger in future years. They've built their team to win it this year.
I hate to say, I don't think he gets. I don't think it's a black and white given if he misses the playoffs.
No, I know.
Okay.
Like Mickey's going to be. Well, this guy was injured, and this would have happened. And
I agree.
Like, they're going to be much more because that's how they're built from top down. There isn't like the super like the owner doesn't have the foot on anyone's throat. Like it's a very measured, calmer. It isn't like ring culture in the NBA or whatever. Like where it's like someone's gone. Like I think it's just everybody's kind of safe and they run their process and they'll make a logical decision instead of like a pressured decision because
for sure
Mickey isn't worried about getting fired. So I think when people get fired quick, it's because the GM's worried about their job. They run the program in a way, and I think it's to their benefit too. I think sometimes people that do things too quick, it's to their detriment. And I think that there's value in seeing how something plays out, but you do need to know when to press eject. So if he misses the playoffs and everybody's healthy and they just underachieve tremendously, you hit the eject button. If they miss the playoffs and it's because Derek Carr got hurt in week 6 and Marshawn's kidney went again and Mike Thomas didn't play the whole season and Chris Olave had a hamstring injury, Mickey ain't going to make that black and white decision.
No. Yeah. And I hope I didn't imply that. What I was, the first thing I was going to say, I think that's the standard of success. They will recognize why didn't we achieve? I mean, I guess what I mean is there's no question the organizational goal is playoffs this year. There's no, that's all right. We're on a 3-year plan. They're not on a 3-year plan. They're on a 1-year plan. But yeah, we know that this owner sees nuance and we know that this general manager sees nuance. So if it is injuries, if it's things beyond their control, if it's, officiating calls that are insane or something, they will take that stuff into consideration. They won't do it just to please the fan base. They won't do it, to find a scapegoat. I think what it would take, though, is if the organization decided we need a new plan. And if that's, we've now got 34-year-old Cam Jordan, we've got 34-year-old Demario Davis, we're going to trade Alvin. We're not going to re-sign Michael Thomas. Derek Carr's deal, they can escape after 2 years. If they decided, we're going to stop trying to be, and we are going to go through a mini rebuild, or we need a different kind of offense. I think the organization would have to change its decision about where they are compared to the rest of the NFC in order for them to also want to change direction with Dennis Allen.
So then it's probably too early to ask this. Then do we see longevity with DA like we did with Sean? I don't know if we can answer that yet, or if it's fair to answer it.
I don't think the roster makes you feel confident that way. I think that would require a couple of draft classes that pave the way for longevity because there's a lot of, it's an older roster. He can earn that longevity if he succeeds with this roster, and then he can earn the guy to oversee the next rebuild. But I think he has to win with this roster to prove he gets to oversee the next rebuild.
Yeah, I stamped that. I'm with
All right, beautiful.
Yeah.
Then here's another crazy question. If things don't work out this year with DA, who replaces him?
hopefully the youngest, brightest offensive mind in the league. I mean, that's the direction I would probably go with it at this point. And
That would almost be why you fired him too, almost, because that would probably feel what you need. Like,
yeah. But I would definitely go with like whoever it is, whoever's the Jalen Hurts OC next year. Like that's the guy that I'd be going after.
Yeah, well, I'm sure too. A lot of the names that were in that conversation just 2 years ago too.
Yeah. Look, I don't think. Well, I would probably go to a whole different. I'm not sure there was really anybody. Doug Peterson was in that stack. I wasn't super. There was no one in there where it was like, man, I'm excited about this guy. Like Jay Gruden was in there. Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson has proved a lot of people wrong. Shout out to him. Like he's done a great job in his current situation. But I don't think that there was anybody that was overwhelmingly better than DA. Like I was honestly most excited about DA in that group. And look, he was getting interviews with, like, he was supposed to go interview with the Bears and he canceled it because the Saints thing started coming together. Like, he was somebody that had a lot of hype. And I think there's a lot of fans that tend to forget every time his name came up in a head coaching rumor, they were like, no, you can't take him. You can't take him. You can't take him. I mean, this guy was like the best DC in the league. Like, he deserved the shot he got. The one thing you can't do is let somebody out of your building and then bring him back. Like, I would rather be wrong with the guy and then have to get rid of him than for him to go somewhere else and be in a situation where you can't fix it. Because ultimately, like, if DA doesn't work, you can still fix the situation and get another head coach. But if he goes on, he's a great coach somewhere else, it's the Trey Hendrickson situation. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle. So I agreed with it then. I agreed with the mindset. He's got to prove it, though. Like, agreeing with it doesn't mean that I agree with it every set. I agreed with the one decision. Now he has to prove that decision was right, and he has not done that yet.
I stamp that opinion too. But I mean, to emphasize that point, I think a lot of people, especially in hindsight, look at the decision to hire Dennis Allen as sort of a lazy one. Like, oh, we don't need to bother going out and having a wide search and opening our minds. He was just a really, really tough candidate to beat. When your standard is, we really like this guy, you got to blow us away to pass it. Like that. That's how that search began. He was a tough candidate to beat at the time, and we all saw why.
Aaron Glenn, from what I heard, came the closest to rocking the boat.
Yeah.
And I think he too would have been a good hire.
Yeah.
DA made the most sense, though.
He might be, like, if there was a change, he might be someone that he would get another interview.
I think that would be tough. If you're firing DA after 2 years, that's something I don't see them doing.
They'd still talk to him, though.
Yeah, they would talk to him for sure. But then I think you'd want to. I think the only way DA gets fired after 2 years is if you're going for him, like. You mentioned the Eagles offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen. The Colts just drafted Anthony Richardson and hired Shane Steichen. Like, it's sort of a radical change for their organization or whatever. Like, I don't think you just be like, we bring in Aaron Glenn, we want to do everything else the same and just change the one guy. I think it would take more of a shift than that.
I'm not completely convinced they'd do something entirely uncomfortable. These are comfortable people that like the way things are done, and someone with roots in that, I'm not sure that it would have to be something different.
I'm envisioning what it would take for them to fire DA.
Yeah. But I can see them firing DA and bringing in Aaron Glenn 100%.
Yeah,
it's like if I had to bet, like that's the bet I would probably
keeping half.
We need to have like a ting or like a little thing for like a bold prediction, because I feel like that would be going off right now.
I've mentioned it a bunch of times though. Same ownership, different decision makers, and Mickey is the most probably comfortable person in the entire building. But when they went from Alvin Gentry to Stan Van Gundy to, all right, no, wait a minute, we need to bring in Willie Green, young guy, we're young team philosophy. Like, that's just what I'm picturing in my head. If they finally are like, all right, we need a new page, new chapter or something like that. That's what I think it would take for them to fire DA after just 2 years.
That's a really good point with Willie Green too, and we've obviously seen the success. Unfortunately, like injuries.
Have we?
Well, I mean, it's not his fault. The situation obviously surrounding the biggest guy on the team, Zion Williamson. But no, I think they're set with Willie Green, and I think he's going to do special things in New Orleans. You mentioned Trey Hendrickson being a guy they definitely miss. I think the same for Von Bell, and that gets into our next topic, Hall of Fame potential.
Oh, wow.
Every single time Trey Hendrickson gets brought up, I immediately think of Von Bell. And if the Saints would have, number one, that guy was so emotional the last time he played for the Saints in the locker room, and he knew that it probably wasn't going to work out just contract wise. And he had, established himself. He was going to go and get more money. And I think he's happy where he's at. But I think
fun
he
story there.
with the Saints.
Well, he could have.
Yeah.
There was a contract offer on the table. Yeah, they were trying to get more money. Malcolm Jenkins got released. They gave the same offer to Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins said yes first. Von Bell had to go. So Von Vaughn had a chance to stay here,
Wow.
and there was some ruffled feathers on the Von Bell side of that because they kind of felt like, you know, there was a deal there, and they
He
tried
helped
to
create the identity here,
they
too.
tried to raise the money, and then as they were trying to raise the money, someone else took the original offer. So yeah, he could still be here.
Man, that's
Speaking
a
of
tough
which,
business deal.
Now with the Carolina Panthers, it comes
Yeah.
full circle.
Yeah.
He was part of their
Yeah.
let's patch it together plan.
I know it's going to be weird seeing him back on the same playing field against the Saints this time. But yeah, let's get into Hall of Fame potential. I think Von Bell is in that list, but looking at who the Saints have and maybe some guys who have retired now, who do you guys think has the biggest Hall of Fame potential?
I think there's one, maybe two. Obviously Cam. I think Cam needs to get about, the question with Cam, does he have enough longevity to get about 21, 22 more sacks? And I think if he does, he's a Hall of Famer for sure. That puts him right there in the top 10. And that's typically where you got to be to get in the Hall of Fame as a pass rusher. I think he's still a little bit on the outside of that conversation to where you got to go in then and have people convinced in that voters room. Whereas if you're in the top 10, I think it's probably a pretty, you know, you go in, you're stamped and you get the gold jacket. The only other guy I really see right now that's maybe on that path, and I don't know that he's made enough interceptions or whatever, but I think if there is a nuanced presentation for Marshawn Lattimore, he's in that conversation. He's obviously one of the best of all time. It's just, you know, I kind of feel like there's a lot of people that vote that are from an earlier era where I think you have to have the numbers and the nuance maybe is lost probably a little bit in that process just by the sake of comparison. Whereas I think a younger voter would probably be more open-minded to some people that just have the film, because I think that's just kind of how the coverage of the game has changed over the years. But so those would be the two guys. And then look, my long shot dark horse, there's two of them. Like if somehow Ryan Ramczyk like finds the special like the blood, you know, whatever, the spinning of the blood, and he's magic again like some guys get, maybe he gets back on that path. I thought he was probably the most certainly on it at the beginning of his career. And then you know, Mike has like 6 healthy seasons. Maybe he does too.
Yeah.
No, well, look, you're right that nuance gets taken out of that argument a lot. And there's a lot of positions that don't have stats, but I feel like first team all pro carries tons of weight in that room. All decade team, sometimes even Pro Bowls, even though they're aware that it needs to be like a real Pro Bowl selection and not like a third alternate Pro Bowl selection. And that's going to hurt Marshawn unless things change. Like Marshawn needs to start getting that first team all pro respect.
You ever looked at the all pro voter list? For real?
Yeah.
Have you ever looked at it?
Right.
There's probably 15 people on there you've never heard of, which is insane to me. Like Albert Breer isn't voting on this stuff. Like Ian Rappaport isn't voting on this stuff. Like these are the people that cover the league most closely. And there's like, you know, no offense, but there's like producers on radio shows because they have other friends that are already on the thing. So it's kind of like a boys club, and it's ridiculous. Like the people that have the strongest voices in the league, the best sources in the league. I want Albert Breer being able to go around and ask every head coach in the league what they think about his ballot, so that the ballot's, you know, at least informed. And there's people on there that I guarantee can't do that. And it's crazy to me that some of this stuff is in the hands of like people that just aren't. Like, if Breer's not on your list, Ian's not on your list is invalid. Like, I'm sorry. These people know the league better than anybody.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. Cam Jordan, though, is a guy who he can get there. He has, I have it here. He turns 34 July 10th this summer, and he's at 115.5. I agree with you. Like, 22 is sort of the magic number that would get him to 137.5, and that's sort of like the exact cutoff point. DeMarcus Ware got in last year at 138.5. Jared Allen didn't at 136. I think Jared Allen will eventually get there. Dwight Freeney made it into the room last year, but Allen had 4 first-team All-Pros. Freeney had 3 first-team All-Pros. Cam has 2 first-team All-Pros and 1 second. And so I think he's going to have, I think the 22 sacks and maybe 1 more All-Pro season, but I think he'll have a lot of things going for him that will be nuance in the room. Batted more passes than any other defensive end all those years. His run defense, if people talk about that, I think everybody thinks that's excel. He was on a Super Bowl team. So I think he just has to meet the minimum thresholds in those 2 categories. I think he's got a realistic shot at it. 22 sacks. Can he do that in 3 years? Does he have to play 4 years?
I think he
what
can
do you
do
think?
it. I think he can do it.
I think so too.
I think he's going to stay until he does it. Cam's
That's a
very,
good point.
very aware of the number. If it
Yes.
takes Cam 5 years, I think Cam would hang around for 5 years.
I agree,
just
and
to
I
get
think
there.
he can get 22
I
as
think
long
Cam
as he
could
wants
play
to play
5 more years
Yeah.
if he needed to. Yeah,
They might need him to the way they built
he's
this team.
extremely. He's still relatively. I mean, he's healthy. He's healthy. He's just might get a little bit older, but I think he can hang on and remain productive. Yeah.
Jari Evans isn't really part of this conversation, but I'm bringing him up because he was a finalist for the first time last year.
He should be in.
He's one of only, there were 28 finalists last year. He did not make that list of 15 that gets in the room, but I think he'll get there. Here's what I like about Jari Evans' chances. First of all, he had the 4 first-team All-Pros and a second-team All-Pro. He was on an All-Decade team, but he is running unopposed. It's different for Cam and the list of defensive ends he's going to go up. It's different for Mike, which I'll get to in a minute. But out of those 28 finalists last year, he was the only guard or center. And there are none, like Pro Football Reference does this thing where they give you a point total if you're Hall of Fame worthy, and they say he is. And there's nobody close to him until Zach Martin, who's still playing. So Zach Martin probably won't retire for a couple of years, and then he'll have to wait 5 years. So for like 6 or 7 years, Jari Evans is going to be standing there alone as the only guard or center that they're even talking about. And then I think you can absolutely give a nuanced argument for him. He actually was part of like changing the league. I mean, what Sean Payton was doing with that offense, what Drew Brees was doing that offense, and using the guards is a big way to let Drew Brees pick the league apart, and making guards, showing the value of guards. He was the highest paid guard of all time at one point. I do think he's going to get in, even though he didn't make the list of 15 last year. And Michael Thomas is really interesting. So his numbers, it's not like Cam where you say just 22 more sacks. Mike's about halfway there. He's got 526 catches, 6,121 yards. The guys waiting at wide receiver right now with over 1,000 catches: Anquan Bolden, Reggie Wayne, Andre Johnson, Steve Smith, Hines Ward. And the reason they're not getting in is because no one wants to choose between them. So it's just this backlog. I don't think Mike needs to get to their numbers because he was so special setting that all-time record. But I bet he needs at least 400 more catches. At least. Can Mike get 400 more catches?
I think he needs a whole second act to his career almost, just because it's going to be about narrative building as much as everything else. And like you said, there's a ton of really good wide receivers that haven't gotten in. So I think it needs to be like a overwhelmingly positive, feel good type story for people to really kind of buy into that whole thing, because it's going to be about storytelling as much as anything with that.
I agree.
Well, that'll do it for us here in the NewOrleans.Football studio. We'll see you guys next time.